human. Good to see you again. Welcome back to another fascinating episode of A Cult of Misfits. I am Matt Owens, here to talk about the mysteries of the universe. If you're interested, you can follow me on Twitter, you can follow me on Instagram, YouTube, even on your Amazon Alexa or smart device. A Cult of Misfits. Um, Today I want to talk about choice, the choices that we make in our life, specifically how we choose to respond to things in our life. So I want to dive into that. It's going to likely lead into me talking about going with the flow, which I'm fond of talking about because that's been a large component of my journey lately, the last couple of years. And I think we'll talk about meditation a little bit as well. That's sort of what I'm being led and directed to talk about today. So that's what's going to spew forth. So buckle up. Um, when I first started my journey, my spiritual awakening, or whatever you want to call it, um, I started realizing that a new concept for me was choosing how to respond to things. Because up until that concept was dropped into my noggin, I always just reacted to things without thinking. Right? A guy cut me off in traffic. I would lay on the horn and give him the finger. There was no thought behind it. I just was angry, and that was my response. Or somebody said something that I didn't like, and it pissed me off, and now I'm in a bad mood because of them. Right? But then I heard somebody say, "You're responsible for choosing how to respond emotionally." And I really took that to heart and started analyzing it and started applying it in my own life. And slowly but surely, with baby steps, many, many baby steps, I started practicing responding to things differently, right? For example, yesterday I was crossing the street. It was a busy intersection, and I was just standing next to this gentleman that was older than me. It doesn't matter his age, I suppose, but we're both just standing there, and the crosswalk sign lights up. And so we start heading into the street, but one more car is making a right-hand turn and zips past us real quick. We weren't in any real danger, right? but the older gentleman next to me like was flipping off the driver and screaming and yelling at him, and I was like, "Whoa!" He cut both of us off, but I responded with nothing. It didn't bother me at all. It didn't even register that a car cut me off. It was like, okay, well, whatever, and I crossed the street. The other guy chose to respond in a different way, right? And it resonated with me because there was a long period in my life, let's call it the dark ages, um, where I had a lot of anger inside. And so, in many ways, I've been that guy in the crosswalk flipping off a driver like this fucking idiot, right? Fucking people, right? Just a lot of anger. A lot of that anger had to do with working in the food service industry, if we're just being real about it. But I had a lot of bitterness, a lot of anger and rage towards, just everybody. I just hated people. I hated life. I hated myself. I hated who I was, and that was reflected in how I conducted myself. Right? I responded in anger because that's what was going on within me. Part of this journey and part of this wisdom that I was shown was that what's going on within us, and I mean within our hearts, is a reflection of what is going on in our external. As within, so without, as the saying goes. Shout out to the Emerald Tablets for that little nugget of knowledge. And so once I started addressing and loving the anger and the darkness within me, the shadow within me, whatever you want to call it, I started slowly becoming a more peaceful person, a more loving person in my own heart. And that slowly started reflecting itself in my external world. When I was an angry person, I would often bump into other angry people. Like attracts like, right? It's a vibrational thing, I believe, a frequency thing, I believe. And so if you're always pissed off at the world, you're going to attract other people who are always pissed off at the world. And then y'all are going to piss each other off. And then, it just snowballs from there. So I started realizing and noticing, because I'm not just doing all this willy nilly. I like to go at these things in my life. You know, I hesitate saying in a scientific manner, but um, I like to document it. I like to analyze these things. I like to, what happens if I do it this way? What happens if I do it that way? Oh, I feel more peace. Let's lean into that and try more of that. So I was playing around with this idea of, if I can address and love the darkness within me, what will that do to my external world? And I started noticing over time that I had less angry people around me. Right? I was having less of those, Karen type interactions, at the grocery store, or just randomly, whatever. As I started finding more peace in my heart, I started seeing it reflected in my external world. So that got me thinking, how can I cultivate more of this? Because at the end of the day, I just wanted more happiness, right? And I'm not saying 100% pure happiness and joy and glee all the time. That's not what this is about. It's about balance. And my whole life, I realized that there was a great imbalance, that these, I was letting my shadow run the show. I was just at the whims of my shadow, this big, angry shadow, not realizing that I was in charge the whole time, realizing that it's like the baby elephant that has the stake in the ground at the circus, and then when the elephant grows up, it doesn't realize that it can't lift its leg out of the ground because the stake in the ground. You know the analogy, just go with it. We don't realize what we're truly capable of. And so I started practicing this. The first step for me was becoming aware of it, realizing how often I was just blindly reacting to things, right? And a huge component of this, stepping in this direction, was my introduction to meditation. And when I first started this spiritual journey, when I heard people talking about meditation, I kind of rolled my eyes, to be honest with you. It was just like, okay, like, nothing against it, but it just seemed like a little too much for me. And like, that's just not for me, I suppose. But I started practicing it. And once I started practicing it, I started seeing benefits. It started giving me a little buffer of response time. Even if that buffer was just literally one breath, and then I fucking freak out, right? At least I'm putting 1 second in between my response time there. And the goal being to widen that gap of response time to what triggers me, to what pisses me off, to what, makes me upset, or whatever. And so I started finding, upon analysis, that the more that I meditated, the slower I was to respond to these things in a good way, in a positive way. And so I kept leaning into that. And I have to tell you, for those of you who don't meditate, or it seems intimidating to you, I don't care what you do one way or the other. So I'm not trying to convince you. All I'm doing is explaining that it's it, I had to get over a huge hump, which I think is very common. And that hump being, I'm an idiot. I'm really bad at meditation. I can't do it. Okay. Now that's just the voice in your head, which is to say fear of the unknown. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to look like a buffoon. I'm not good at this sort of thing. Those are all just stories that you're choosing to believe. So what I had to do for myself is stop believing those fucking stories. Stop saying those things. Stop making them my reality. And start saying, I can do anything. Yes, I might be terrible in the beginning. That's okay. With practice, I can do anything. And so that's the mindset that I started going into it, and realizing that I'm gonna probably suck at this whole meditation thing. And I did, but also, like, suck according to who? Am I comparing myself to the Dalai Lama? Like, who am I comparing myself to? And why? So once I threw that junk out the window and stopped comparing myself to others, these gurus or these people who are more spiritual than me or have a stronger mind than I do, all that sort of stuff. Nonsense. Nonsense. That's like going to the gym on the first day and saying, oh man, I could never be ripped like those guys. Yeah, that's what they said on day one as well. And look at them. They're ripped now, right? It takes work. And so I rolled up my sleeves and I said, I'm gonna dedicate myself to this meditation thing because I really think that I'm onto something here. And so I started responding and reacting in a different way to things. I had real bad road rage for a long time, which I know many of you do as well. um, and so what I did was just it was all just practice for me. I just let it all be practice for me, right? And meditation, just to wrap up this meditation conversation, meditation. I felt intimidated by the whole process because I felt like it had to be this formal, sitting in the lotus position, with my index finger and thumb touching so that I looked like fucking Buddha, right? Don't judge my beer belly, guys. That it had to be, with wind chimes in the background and, like new age music on Spotify. Like it doesn't have to be any of those things. It can be. And if that works for you, fantastic. But what I learned was to break free from all of that and boil it down to the whole game. This whole meditation game is about not thinking, right? That constant chatter in our minds, right? That constant dialogue. The whole game just became trying to put a mute button on that for as long as I can, right? Not try to do it for 5 minutes and then fail and beat myself up and I'm not good enough and I can't do this and I knew that this. None of that, right? It's not a contest. No, nobody's going around asking you like, oh, how long do you meditate for, huh, bro? What are you at? I'm up to 8 minutes now. Where are you at, bro? It doesn't work like that. Okay, so I had to let that go. I had to say, you know what? Sometimes I can not think for only 5 seconds before I start thinking about like, well, what's for lunch? And well, I wonder if I need to go buy this and I'm going to go this. Nope. Try to shut it off as long as I can. And slowly over time, I got better at it. Right. And then over the course of years of doing this, it just eventually blossomed into, I don't even call it meditation anymore, right? Like I used to have to say, okay, guys, I make a big deal. Okay, I'm gonna go and meditate now. Okay, like this is my meditation time for 30 minutes, and that told the kids not to bother me, and this is a special thing. And now meditation for me, and that's all fine and well. Like I definitely have moments like that as well, but but meditation for me now just looks like walking through the woods, just quietly listening to the birds chirping, not thinking about what's for lunch or what she said to me yesterday that pissed me off or how I'm going to take care of this problem that's coming up next week or and none of those things. Just listen to the birds chirp, right? Gardening can be meditation for some people, taking just a quiet bath, maybe just not thinking, right? It can take any form you like. Jogging, just listening to your feet hitting the pavement, the rhythm of it, that's meditation. It's all meditation. Meditation is whatever you want it to be. And so I started doing it enough and incorporating it into my life so often that now I don't even think about it. I don't even think like, okay, I'm going to meditate now. I just do it. When I'm feeling imbalanced, when I'm feeling not grounded, when I'm feeling stressed out or worried or fearful about something, I just automatically go to my tried and true, my trusty meditation. It's a tool in my tool belt, and I pull it out and I just have a little quiet time. I don't clock it. I just close my eyes and try not to think as much as I can. When I do think, just let it go, release it, try again. And just sitting in that quiet feels so, so, so good. And so I started practicing this enough that I started finding that things don't upset me like they used to anymore. it takes a lot to really get me rattled and riled up these days, to be honest with you. and and I'm patting myself on the back. I'm giving myself a gold star because it's so good to recognize the good work that we've done in our lives, right? Because so often that voice in our head is just constantly beating us up. And so I counterbalance that by saying, good job. We've come so far. Good for you, Manowans. Right? Kind of boost ourselves up sometimes, guys. It's not about being egotistical or narcissistic or any of that. It's about balancing that voice in your head that's telling you that you're a piece of shit and reprogramming it with things like, I'm an amazing human being. I can do anything. So for me, it was all about deprogramming the way that I was, the way that I reacted to things. And now that it's been about 4 years since I started that journey, I don't get rattled very often. I have to be like really tired and exhausted, or sick or something to make me angry at something or to trigger me. Um, there just isn't much that rattles my cage these days. And I was reminded of I was around the holidays. I was hanging out with some family, and it was lunchtime, and I was making myself, guys, this sandwich, epic doesn't even begin to describe it. It was an epic sandwich. It was open faced. It was just from scraps in the fridge, right? It was just like shredded chicken and like this really nice Dijon mustard and a little too much mayo, which is just how I love it, and Swiss cheese and a slice of tomato. It was just, um, I'm not embarrassed to admit I was drooling a bit. Okay. So it was just, I was very excited for this meal. Now, the bread that it was on was sort of a small, like baguette type of a situation, and it was open faced. And so I had these two baguettes, and they were like towers, right? These two Jenga, delicious, delicious Jenga towers, right? And so I very carefully placed them into the toaster oven. I'm getting excited right now just thinking about it again, guys. So I'm delicately putting it in so that my tower of amazingness doesn't topple over. Um, and I'm just hanging out in the kitchen with my brother, and just waiting for this this divine sandwich to come out of the toaster oven. So the bell dings, and I couldn't run towards it fast enough. I get my plate out, and I'm like gingerly taking the sandwich out so that it doesn't, topple into the oven and make a huge mess. So I put one half on the plate, and then as I'm bringing the other half out, it fucking topples. The whole beautiful Tower of Babel comes crashing down in the toaster oven, and there's just cheese and sauce and chicken all over the burners, and it's made a huge mess. and and I started laughing. I started laughing. And I looked at my brother, and he's smiling. He said, "You know what? That would have really pissed me off if that happened to me." And I patted myself on the back because a few years ago, that would have really pissed me off too. I was super excited for that fucking sandwich. And it just completely got demolished. And so I just was like sadly scraping the remnants of what could have been onto my plate, and just smiling, genuinely smiling, right? It's because I've gotten myself to a place of just going with the flow. I talk about it so often, and sometimes it's annoying to hear people saying, "Well, just go with the flow, just go with the flow." But I've really truly embraced it, and these are the results of just acceptance, right? It's that Eastern philosophy of just accepting what is, right? Just allowing it to just be the observer. Just observe your shattered dreams when your sandwich falls into the toaster oven. And I've been practicing acceptance. And so I've just learned to accept it is what it is. I can't change it. I can't change what happened to the sandwich. I can't change what happens to me. I can't control it. There are many things, honestly, that are out of our control. Choosing how we respond to one of them is within our control. But the sandwich falling is out of my control, but how I choose to respond to it is within the realm of my control. this whole grand experiment of mine if you've been following me for a while, of going with the flow these last 2 years, it's been a grand experiment, seeing how much I can really let go, as you know, all of the ancient wisdom talks about, the ancient philosophies, right? The masters, whatever. There's just always this concept of go with the flow. So I started asking myself, what would my life look like if I actually let go, right? Wu Wei, as they say in Taoism and in China, in Chinese philosophies. Just to be like the water, right? Be like the wind. Zero resistance. Because anytime I found that anytime I resisted something in my life, or I dug my heels in, or tried to make the ship turn left, as I want to go this way, I want to go this way, the more that there is resistance, there's a lack of flow, and I start experiencing suffering in my own head, right, in my own life. And so this is another one of those things that I put to practice. I hear go with the flow, and I start analyzing it and putting it into practice in my own life to see, like, does this actually fucking work or not? Yes, the ancient masters all talked about it, but what do they know? Right? I gotta see it, feel it, taste it, do it for myself, and then I'll make my own conclusion. Thank you very much. And my conclusion is my life gets so much simpler when I just go with the flow. I have so much more peace in my heart. How long I strive for peace in my heart, just for not to be stressed all the time, right? And it's a practice. That's what this whole journey the last 2 years has been for me, is learning to go with the flow. It does not come naturally to the human. It didn't to me, at least, right? And I imagine it doesn't for most people. If it does for you, good for you, buddy. Tell me your secrets, please. But the more I go with the flow, the easier it is when these bumps come into our life, right? These obstacles, these trials and tribulations that come into our life, such as the sandwich gate 2023. Perhaps you've heard of it. Um, when these bumps in the road happen, no matter how big or small they happen to be, I've learned that when I when I go with the flow and have faith and trust that the universe or God or the divine hand, whatever vernacular works for you, if you trust that divinity will lead you and guide you where you need to go at the end of the day, right? It doesn't mean there's not going to be bumps. It doesn't mean you're not going to get bruised. It doesn't mean it's not going to be difficult and challenging, because oftentimes it is, right? I don't want to pretend like it's all just rainbows and butterflies, because it's not. But if I choose to view it as rainbows and butterflies, then life gets a little bit easier, right? Once I once I start practicing accepting my sandwich falling, for example, enough times, then when a major catastrophe happens in my life, or a large challenge or trial comes into my life, it's a lot easier for me because I've been practicing. There's the story of Jesus picking you up and walking you along the beach, those times when you didn't have the strength. How absurd would it be if Jesus picked you up to carry you along your journey where you need to go? How fucking insane would it be if you were like, where are we going? Where are we going, J-Man? Are you sure that this is the right direction? This place looks a little bit sketch. Like, I found that in my own life. I'm saying that to be funny, but in my own life, I questioned the divine all the time because I was scared out of my mind. I had very little faith and trust in the divine. I grew up Christian. I always, if you had asked me, like, do you have faith in God? I'd be like, well, heck yes, I do. Heck yes, I do. But when the pedal goes to the metal, when it really comes down to it, and there's a crisis or a trial or tribulation in my life, do I trust that God is going to see me through this? Most of my life, the answer was, maybe. Kinda. I've been fucked over a lot in my life, and I'm scared that it's going to happen again. So I kind of don't trust the process, right? So these last 2 years for me has been really important because it's been a training ground for me personally. Getting me into that mindset of getting as close as I can to 100% faith and trust in the divine to lead me where I need to go, in the universe, to the cosmic river to take me to my destination, not to fuck me over, right? There's going to be rapids, there's going to be boulders in the stream, but I can either spend, years ramming up against that boulder, trying my best to get over it, or I can let go and just let the river take me around the boulder effortlessly. Once I started applying these concepts to my life got so much better, so much easier. That's why I'm sharing this with you. Is not to brag or to say like, "Oh, guys, I'm so spiritual. I got my life figured out." All I'm saying is like, this is my gospel. This is my good news to everybody. Is like, hey, I've made these changes in my life, and my life has made a huge turnaround for the better. And if you choose to follow this path, um, from what I've heard, people have similar results, right? But it's the path less traveled, that's for sure, right? Because it's so difficult to go against one's programming. It's so much easier just to give in, to give up, to just stay with the status quo, to never really truly venture outside of your comfort zone as well, right? In so many ways, I won't go on a huge rant. I said, well, maybe I will. We'll see where this goes. But I think in so many ways, as a society, I guess I'm speaking for American society, I suppose, but we've become so soft, so delicate, right? Where we don't want any discomfort whatsoever. We have discomfort aversion. And maybe that's also part of the human condition as well, right? Just not wanting to feel that. But I believe that um, that's where the real magic is pushing through that. Um, it was for me, anyways. I think that about wraps that up. It was like, do I want to talk about anything else? And I think that about wraps it up. I really enjoy having these conversations. See, guys, I think this is like I'm going to pat myself on the back for not talking about aliens. It's been my go-to. It's been on my mind a lot lately. But you know what? I don't have to talk about aliens all the time. Okay, what do you think of that? Um, before I go, I feel really led to talk to more people about these sorts of topics, things of a spiritual nature. And I feel like my path is leading me there, and I'm sort of putting out my feelers because I just enjoy talking to people about these things, right? About people's belief systems, and do they believe in aliens? What do they believe about the afterlife? Do they believe in a god or reincarnation or ghosts or any of these things? I love talking to people about these things in just a conversational manner. It doesn't have to be like an interview situation, but um, the universe has been guiding a lot of people towards me who've been encouraging me to do that. And so I don't know where that's going to come from. I'm going to keep kind of poking and prodding and asking if people would like to join me on one of these platforms to just have a conversation. I had a really great conversation with Kaylin over on Instagram, Electric Self, if you're interested in checking her out. Um, So maybe I'll post that on the various platforms so you guys can kind of get a feel for what I'm talking about. But I just feel like that's what's next. So ultimately, I want to have these conversations in a more in-depth way, and where this is kind of leading down the road is what I'm eventually leading towards is sort of emulating the mystery schools of old in ancient Egypt and ancient Greece, where this sort of sacred knowledge is passed down from generation to generation. I sort of feel led to spearhead something like that, a mystery school where we talk about things of a spiritual nature, how to elevate consciousness, how to tap into the powers that we have, that we are, that sort of thing. So that's not in the immediate, but that's what I'm working towards. So stay tuned for more on that, I'm sure, as things unfold. But I really enjoy having these conversations, whether it's just by myself or with you. Um, I hope you have a great day. End transmission.